Let's take a look at some of the iconic films and series set in the wide, untamed landscapes of Montana. And first up, a true legend of the screen, Lonesome Dove. Released in 1989 as a four-part television miniseries, Lonesome Dove brought the American West roaring back to life. This wasn't just a cowboy drama, it was an epic. Starring Robert Duvall as Augustus McCrae and Tommy Lee Jones as Woodrow Call, Lonesome Dove captured the grit, heartache, and honor of life on the frontier. But here's what matters to us Montana. The story passes through its dusty plains and wild rivers, a setting not just for cattle drives and gunfights, but for soul searching, for testing one's limits, for finding something lost or hidden. Could there be something more to this story? A nod to the land? A clue in the call of the West? When you're chasing treasure or tracing maps beyond the edge, even a miniseries like Lonesome Dove might hold more than just dust and dialogue. Stay tuned, because Montana's movie map is just beginning to unfold. Next movie is The Horse Whisperer. Released in 1998 and directed by Robert Redford, this neo-Western drama is based on the novel by Nicholas Evans. Redford plays the title role, a man with a rare, almost mystical ability to understand horses. When a young girl and her horse are both wounded by tragedy, he's called upon to help them heal, not just physically but emotionally. And where does this story unfold? You guessed it, Montana. Rolling pastures, snow-capped peaks, and quiet golden light drifting through pine trees. The landscape isn't just a backdrop, it's a character, a silent partner in the story's recovery. And for those of us searching for something hidden, The Horse Whisperer offers more than just a moving story. It reminds us that intuition matters, that not all whispers are heard with the ears. Some are felt in the stillness, in the wild, and sometimes on the edge of the map. So whether it's a broken horse or a buried truth, Montana keeps showing up as the place where people come to find what they've lost, and our cinematic trail is far from over. Let's shift gears from quiet horses and cowboy wisdom to getaway cars, disguises, and double-dash crosses. Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. Released in 1974 and directed by Michael Cimino, this film stars Clint Eastwood as Thunderbolt, a former bank robber posing as a preacher, and Jeff Bridges as Lightfoot, a young, reckless car thief who stumbles into something much bigger. Together, they team up for one last score. It's a road movie, a crime comedy, and oddly, a kind of twisted buddy film, all set against the rugged beauty of Montana. From wide-open highways to dusty small towns, Montana plays a starring role, not just as a setting, but as a canvas for chaos. What does this tell us? Sometimes treasure isn't buried in the ground. Sometimes it's the score you're chasing, the freedom, the myth, and sometimes you're not sure if you're running from something or toward it. Thunderbolt and Lightfoot reminds us that Montana holds more than just silence and scenery. It also holds secrets, speed, and a few shotgun shells. And the trail of Montana movies still has a few turns left. In 1889 Montana, a man stumbles out of a saloon, shot in the back. It sounds like the start of a legend. But this one doesn't belong to the hero. It belongs to the sidekick. The Ballad of Lefty Brown follows Edward Johnson, a celebrated lawman, newly elected senator, ready to leave the West behind, until a sniper's bullet changes everything. And in the shadows of that tragedy, his loyal companion, Lefty Brown, is forced into a role he's never played, the lead. Lefty isn't the fastest, he's not the sharpest, and he's not the one anyone expects to carry the burden. But sometimes justice doesn't choose the hero, it chooses the one left behind. Set against the unforgiving plains and wide-open silence of Montana, The Ballad of Lefty Brown is more than just a Western. It's a story of loyalty, of redemption, of doing what's right, even when no one believes you can. And for those of us hunting clues in the frontier, this story reminds us that the map doesn't always lead to gold. Sometimes it leads to justice, to truth, and to the places we were never meant to go alone.
And a river runs through it.
Some stories are told with words, others flow like water. A River Runs Through It is more than a film, it's a meditation. Directed by Robert Redford and released in 1992, this quiet masterpiece is based on Norman Maclean's semi-autobiographical novella. Set in early 20th century Montana, it follows two brothers, one responsible, the other wild, growing up under the firm hand of their Presbyterian father. They don't always speak the same language, but they share one truth: the river, fly fishing, flowing water, the rituals of patience and precision. The river, like a trail, always leads somewhere, to understanding, to pain, to memory. And for those of us who chase clues, maybe the current isn't just something to follow, maybe it's something to feel. And then there's a storm. A family saga carved into the mountains of Montana, a film filled with war, love, betrayal, and revenge. Legends of the Fall. Released in 1994 and starring Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins, and Aidan Quinn, this sweeping drama follows the Ludlow family through the early 1900s, from the wild frontier to the trenches of World War I. At the center is Tristan, fierce, untamed, almost mythic. And Montana? It's not just where the story takes place, it's what shapes it. This is a land that breeds legends, where loyalty and grief grow wild like the timber, where some wounds are too deep for words, and some treasures, emotional or otherwise, can only be unearthed by those willing to walk alone. From fly rods to rifles, from whispering rivers to windswept fields, Montana has never just been a setting, it's a character. And the stories it tells might just point the way beyond the map's edge.
Group of trees out there in the middle of nowhere.
It's one of the most brutal survival stories ever filmed, and much of its icy, unforgiving beauty, shot in the wilds of Montana. The Revenant, released in 2015 and directed by Alejandro G. Inarritu, stars Leonardo DiCaprio as Hugh Glass, a frontiersman left for dead after a bear attack who claws his way through betrayal, grief, and wilderness to survive. It's a story of revenge, of endurance, and of nature at its most merciless. While the film spans the frontier west, key sequences, including that staggering landscape, were filmed in the snow-covered peaks of Montana's wilderness. The terrain becomes a character, a test, a spiritual reckoning. For treasure hunters, The Revenant is a brutal reminder. The wild doesn't care about clues or gold, but it will reveal truths if you're willing to bleed for them. In this kind of story, the map isn't drawn, it's earned. Step by frozen step. Montana doesn't just make legends, it breaks them first. And only the ones who survive get to tell the tale. Not all legends rise from gold, revenge, or broken hearts. Some come from fire, and the real ones leave scars. Red Skies of Montana, released in 1952, is based on the true story of the Man Gulch Fire, a devastating wildfire that erupted on August 5th, 1949. Deep in the gates of the mountains wilderness of western Montana. 15 smoke jumpers parachuted in, 12 never came out. The fire turned suddenly, driven by wind, trapping the men and cutting off their path to safety. Some ran, 2 reached the ridgeline, but only one man, Foreman Wagner Dodge, survived by doing something no one had seen before. He set a backfire, burned the grass in front of him, and laid down inside the black as the inferno roared past. The others didn't follow. They couldn't believe it would work. And that difference, between fear and instinct, between trust and panic, is what made history. Red Skies of Montana isn't just a story about fire. It's about what happens when nature becomes the enemy and the only way out is to think faster than flame. It changed how we fight wildfires, how we train, how we survive. And for those of us still chasing answers in the wilderness, it's a reminder. Sometimes survival is the treasure. Across the windswept plains, beneath the jagged peaks, and along the cold rivers that run through it all. Montana has been telling stories. We've followed cowboys and convicts, horses and haunted men, legends born from love, fire, grief, and gold. In Lonesome Dove, we watched loyalty ride into the frontier. In The Horse Whisperer, we witnessed healing among horses and heartache. Thunderbolt and Lightfoot showed us crime, chaos, and the wild price of freedom. Lefty Brown reminded us that even sidekicks carry the weight of justice. A river runs through it, flowed with memory and loss. Legends of the fall raged with love, loyalty, and war. The Revenant crawled through death to reach vengeance. Bronco Billy clung to the dream when everyone else had moved on. And Red Skies of Montana, that one showed us that survival sometimes requires unthinkable instinct. But here's the question. What if these aren't just stories? What if they're a map? Not drawn in ink, but told in symbols, in rivers and ridgelines, in blazes and backfires, in cards and clocks, whispers and scars. Montana keeps showing up because maybe that's where the truth still hides. So whether you're chasing a treasure or just trying to understand the weight of a story told at dusk, remember this. The map isn't always in your hand. Sometimes it's in the movie playing in your memory. And just maybe, Montana has been whispering the coordinates all along.